Welcome back to Sentient Mind. How you doing, Jack?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. So today is the AI news. What are we going to talk about today?
Right, so we've got 4 big bits of news that we want to try and get through. Firstly, we've got an update from Google, got an update from Grok, then we've got an update from a company called Minimax, and then we're also going to talk about the death of code, plus some rapid fire updates at the end of the session. So we'll see how we get on, but that is the plan. Shall we dive in, Mark?
Sounds awesome. Yep. What's the first story?
So the first thing we are going to talk about today is an update from Google, and more specifically around Agentic AI from Gemini. So Gemini is kind of this, within the Google ecosystem. And what we're talking about is an update as part of what people are calling the advent of Agentic AI. So we've certainly talked a lot about Agentic AI. Agentic AI seems to be one of those buzzwords which people are talking about in this space. So it's therefore it'd be cool to talk about what's the latest from Google, and we're going to do show a bit of a demo of what's going on, and that's actually what caught my eye. So this news, what I'll do is go through a little bit of history, but this news is like this release came out in December 2024. But what is starting to trickle through now is like the real applications and what people are actually being able to do with this technology. So, bit of history. Gemini models, they've certainly been pioneering in the AI space in terms of multimedia, multimodal processing. So that's about processing different media formats. And the Gemini models have been really, really impressive at leading the charge in that space. So the first Gemini model 1.0 came out just over a year ago. So I think it was about December 2023, or it might be November. And then Gemini 1.5 was released just a few months later in February 2024. So it's been a little bit of a while before we have seen the latest release, which is Gemini 2.0. And this was, as I say, came out in December, so last month. And this is the single biggest leap that we've seen towards this world of agentic capability,
Okay.
let's call it. So what do we mean by agentic capability in this context? So as I say, we're going to dive into a quick demo in a sec, but we're talking about a tool that can effectively perform tasks autonomously. So as a user, you give it some kind of high level outcome that you want to drive towards. This tool is able to sort of come up with a bit of a plan, like the same way a human might, and kind of reason what steps it wants to take to get there. And then once it's come up with that plan, it will go away and execute it. So go through lots and lots of different steps to get to the output that it wants. And one of the key things that this Gemini 2.0 tool allows, or at least what people have been able to create, is like almost human supervision. So instead of it doing it all in the background, you can kind of watch how the tool is iterating towards its goal, and you can intervene at any point to make sure that it doesn't go off to some crazy direction that you don't want it to. So there's kind of that ability to have human guidance, I suppose. What we'll do is we'll quickly flash up a video, if that's all right, Mark.
Yep. Away.
Let's go for this. So as I say, the reason this came up in sort of on my radar was because of this video that I've about to share now. So there's an AI educator in space called Shubham Sabu. Shout out to him for sharing this. And what we'll do is we'll just quickly show this. And I think there's some funky music, so I'll turn it right down. And I kind of just describe what we're seeing on the screen for those that are listening via podcast format. So right now at the beginning of the video, what we're looking at is a screen where someone said, I run a daily AI newsletter for AI developers. Help me research the competition in this space. So as I say, quite like a high level task, like research the competition. What does that mean? We'll see how it performs. So here we go. Just having a little think. Let's come up with a plan. First thing it's going to do is research websites, then it's going to analyze the results, and then it's going to create a report for us. So seems like a fairly sensible plan. The humans intervened and triggered the start research stage of that. What we're seeing now is the tool finds 13 different websites that it wants to have a look at. actually in the interface, it's saying it's researching 58 websites. So it's gone from 13 to 58 websites that it wants to have a look at for this competition in the AI newsletter space. You see there's some like fairly reputable sources there, some blogs, Reddit was in there. Okay, so it's completed the research and it's generated a bit of a breakdown of each source. So we've got a tabular format. It's nice and structured. There's loads and loads of information here. Loads and loads. Users just scrolling through and having a look. Looks like it's split it up into different types of sources, technical sources, blogs. It's got all the source information there for the user to see. And then he's just opened it up in Docs to see the final report. Cool. And we don't get to see much of the report there, but you can see that it has come through. Mark, first reactions?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It would have been good to see the report, to actually see the end result a little bit at the end there, I think. But I mean, I think it's pretty good. I mean, is it just like an extended version of what ChatGPT already does, where it goes and researches some sites? I think the thing is like this is what they call deep research. So I guess it goes out to more websites. There's a great number of websites, right? And it has some kind of logic in there, I guess, to like go further in down the web, down the web of the web, if you like following. I guess it's probably following links to links, right? It's probably not just Googling it and then taking the top 20 hits. It's probably doing something more intelligent than that. So I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. Like, yeah, I'd like to test it out, like on a few things. But yeah, again, I think it's just the capabilities are just getting, what's possible is getting bigger, better, like all the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's. I think the thing for me there was the fact that it. I mean, that example was just. It basically came up with 3 different steps, and maybe you're right. Like, what the other LLMs are capable of right now are like kind of doing that behind the scenes. Like, it is going off. It's finding websites, thinks it's relevant, scraping it, looking at the information, then forming some kind of report.
Just not asking you to intervene at any point. It's just getting on with it, assuming it's right, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I really liked that in terms of that interface, at least that you were watching there. I really liked that the human was able to see what was going on, and and if you compare it to the current capabilities in GPT, it kind of just does it and then spits out the result, and you can kind of dig into it. You kind of dig into the sources maybe at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked that it stepped through and you can see what it's doing. Like I was able to describe the whole time, at least to some degree, what was going on. But for me, the thing that was really interesting, I think, is just how advanced this has become in such a short space of time. And certainly in my my experiences, I've had to conduct research style tasks before. Go and find out about this company or go and find out about this thing, and you probably do. You go over to Google or whatever. You type in the subject matter. Maybe you have some sources in your head that you would want to go and have a look at, and it takes ages. Like it literally takes ages to read through, process what's sort of on that source, whether you think it's good, reputable, and then you have to go and do it again, and see if the views or the opinions of whatever it is are the same. Is there any new facts? Like, is it all the same stuff? Like, and maybe I'm just like suddenly starstruck by it because I've just been shown an example of what these LLMs are doing already. Okay, Jack, this isn't new tech, but I have to know what it is. There's something about that being shown, everything that's going on. Like it's literally showing you 57 websites have just gone and scraped. I've literally got all of them listed out here, and I'm looking at them thinking, yeah, that like I would probably want to go and look at all those different websites. It's got a range of different sources, blogs, technical websites, like whatever else, news sites, and then it's kind of pulling all of that together for you to generate a report. And
well, it's the level of depth, isn't it? I mean, I was being a bit, brushing it off a little bit with ChatGPT because it goes off to the web and does that, and like it's 2 or 3 websites, but it's what you seem to get out of it is a very, very deep, in-depth report. And it's how it pulls that report together. That's why I would kind of like to see it. Like, and again, I guess it's like to do with like the context windows and like how much you can data it can process and assimilate and put into something hopefully coherent at the end of it. But there's definitely loads of use cases. Even like, we're building AI projects, 15 AI projects this year. If you've not seen that, check out our YouTube channel. We'll be covering those soon. But if we wanted to go and research a niche, for example, and maybe the prevalence of what's already available in SaaS apps, or what's in demand, or like, you could imagine going and researching a niche and that cutting down the time massively in what you need to do that. For anything, for marketing, if you're a marketing, it's just a marketing agency or whatever, if you want to go and research your customers' competitors, or research understand their business and understand their market, like doing that kind of stuff. So I can see like you can probably think of anything and find a use case for it within that industry or that niche.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just it, right? Like that's definitely where my mind went in terms of, okay, and what does this mean for industry people? And again, like I reflect on my own experience. Like I've definitely had a go at those tasks. I've definitely been like valued for going away and conducting a good piece of analysis, conducting a thorough research activity for something. And like, we talk about being able to value things from people. Like right now, there are some people that would be able to go away and do a really thorough research task. But for me, just even then, that one example has shown me that that's like, it's just no longer valuable. I mean, why would I value a person to go away and do that research for me if this tool can do a far more thorough research activity in a fraction of the time, kind of doesn't even really explain quite how quickly that's taken place. That would take me days to do properly.
Would charge thousands for that kind of like report, right?
Exactly.
But I think the next, I think like a nice next step would be for like agentic stuff. Often when people carry out these kind of deep insert deep reports, one of the next steps that an agency or somebody that does that research for companies would be like, oh, we're going to go out to real people and survey real people. Now imagine like you get an agent that then goes out and then like it can spin up a survey tool, scrape the web for the correct people to send the survey to, send the survey out and get the results, assimilate the results, and that's like your survey responses as well, and summarize those. Now that is awesome. Actually, that's an idea. Put
it in the hopper.
But
go on. Sorry, you go, man.
No, but I'll sort of show you just a second thing. What makes me laugh, I was just thinking about this massive report that it was spitting out in the example. Like what we do now, like any big bit of text, we put it into an LLM to summarize, right? So I can imagine it spitting out this massive report, and the first thing you're doing, not reading the report, is just like asking Gemini to summarize it. So you've got like you've like gone full circle, like
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh no, I love this. I mean, it's so fun to talk about. Even then, like we're both like, oh, full of ideas. Just can't stop thinking about like the use cases. And again, like what I think we've just watched a 1-minute demo of one prompt, literally one prompt, and it was like really, really vague, right? I'll conduct me a report on analysis of competitor situation in this space, whatever. You can go on then and you can ask this tool to reason, okay, and what, and therefore, based on my use case, based on my ambitions, what should I do? Like this is like we're glimpsing at this agentic AI like revolution, aren't we? Because previously, or like in the very early use cases of this technology, it's very one thing in, one thing out, and that's kind of how you iterate, and already we're taking massive leaps, like in terms of where it's going. Like you can suddenly, there's context of an entire conversation, so it's not just one prompt, it's a series of prompts within this wider context. And actually we're now seeing that the tools can do these, like really think through a plan of how to execute something, and who knows how many steps it can think through in a plan. Like we saw 3 steps because it was quite a basic use case. But what if you'd asked it like, how do I generate value in this space given a research like analysis of competitors. Like you know, it's, I don't know, my mind, I mean, you can hear me, I'm like, I kind of think, because of, it's just so incredible where this can go. Like, it really is. And to see it happening, because I think the concept of agentic AI is like, you can explain like what that is. It's about being able to do multiple tasks, being able to use an arsenal of tools that are available to complete some kind of goal. To actually see it happening and to see exactly all the steps it's doing, it's like, that's exactly what I would do as a human. Like, it's exactly what I would do. And it's just done it like in seconds. I mean, yeah, I'm just really, really in awe of it. And yeah, before, you know, I could probably take up the entire podcast talking about this thing. There were a couple of other bits I wanted to shout about in this space. So firstly, it's kind of like where it's going and some other things that are being talked about. So firstly is improved performance. That's a very nice specific thing, but improved performance and low latency. And what this is about is creating that same technology. So obviously we put in the prompt and it took like a minute or so to go away and do the tasks in that example. But what they're talking about is like a real-time tool. So there's lots of cool examples where you have a set period of time to go and do a task, or it's not time pressured. And great, that example is really good. Go away, generate me a report. Okay, it can do it in 2 minutes. That's pretty impressive. But what about all the use cases where having that like almost human level reasoning or ability to support in a situation, and it's needed there and then? Like, part of what makes humans so impressive is that they can think really fast and they can do stuff really quickly. That's actually the next, like, one of the things that they're working towards is how do you utilize that same like capability, but almost instantaneously, so it can support you like literally during a conversation or during a like situation that you're in, and yeah, like almost act in that same way, but instantly. So I think that's really, really interesting. And the use case again, like, it just unlocks a whole another plethora of use cases. Other cool things, so it's accessible. Like, again, it's really, really like awesome that this field is making this technology accessible to people. You know, that tool you can use is accessible via an API, so you can start integrating it into your applications. And that's all because, you know, we're sort of talking about an advancement generally. So you can use that technology in your applications, and I'm sure that there are really, really cool things coming out of how you can utilize it in software and all kinds of things like that. Also, it's being that same technology being integrated into Google Workspace ecosystem. Again, probably not like new. There's a lot of the big corporations are incorporating their LLM capabilities as part of their wider corporate offering, but obviously Google are taking this most recent Gemini 2.0 and integrating it into their Google Workspace, so it'll be able to read your emails, your files, all that kind of stuff, and become very, very bespoke to you. And I did have a load of use cases that I wanted to chat through, but I am just, like I said, I could go on forever about this. So I reckon we leave it there and go on to the next bit of news, because there's some other really exciting stuff that we want to chat through today.
Cool. So, one quick question: is that available in the UK? For us?
Great question. I don't know the answer. I've not had a play with it.
The reason I asked the question, and we're going to check it out. But the reason I asked the question is because what's not available in the UK is the standalone Grok application, which is the next story. Well, you know, there's a whole lot of Grok news I've kind of wrapped into one here. But Grok this week released XAI, should I say, released Grok as a standalone app in the US. So in the US, you can go and get Grok as a standalone app. Historically, it's been part of X, and you've only been able to access it if you've had X Premium. But it's now been released as a standalone app, so directly competing with Gemini and ChatGPT. I think what's really interesting is that's not hugely exciting news in its own right. I mean, obviously, it's another competitor in the market directly competing with some of the big boys that are already there. I think the thing that's exciting is that Grok 3 is around the corner. I think we're talking about February timeframe, and Musk is calling it a revolutionary AI leap. So it's going to have 10 times more power than its predecessor. So 10 times more compute. So we talked in last week's news about the data center that XAI has built with 100,000 NVIDIA H1 chips. And remember, they're going to upgrade that to H100, sorry, and it's going to be the H200 chips. 50, you're going to put in, sorry,
Yep.
50,000 of those, which is basically going to double the compute again.
Yep.
So, it's going to be the most powerful in terms of compute. It's going to be the most powerful AI on the planet, and it's incredible, really. We're talking about 18 months that Grok's been in product, being built, and like probably going to be alongside like the other ones, and who knows where it's going to. Whether I don't put anything past Elon Musk, to be honest. Like he seems to win everything that he does. But I would not put it past him if this is going to be like the best leading AI, if not at Grok 3 soon after.
Yeah, it's as you say. I think there's something. Musk is a really interesting character. Obviously, we did a almost an entire news podcast around all the things that he's doing, of which Grok sits within, and he's created such a an interesting brand for himself in that you just kind of don't believe that he's going to fail on stuff that he says. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of examples where he said, "Oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that," and they haven't delivered. But the sort of the prevailing theme with him is what he says he kind of does, and this is massive. And if he's saying Grok is going to become one of these big players, then you believe it. And you kind of zoom out and you look at all the things that he's doing to make that a reality. Suddenly, he's building the world's biggest data center with the world's most advanced technology to power it. Bam. Okay. So infrastructure wise, it's there. Financially, I mean, he's the most wealthy man on the planet. He's got a huge amount of wealth behind him, and I'm sure people would invest if he needed it. So financially, it's not a problem. And he's clearly got some of the smartest people in the world at his disposal. I mean, they're flying rockets into space all the time, so it's not a problem. Like, why on earth would you believe for a second that he's not going to deliver on this? And compute, as you say, is such a fundamental part to powering these things. Like, it does seem to be a limiting factor right now in terms of what we can do. But he's making that so it's not the limiting factor. It's no longer the bottleneck for this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm very, very excited to see what Grok 3 is like when it comes out. And I think the fact that he's bringing competition to what everybody talks about ChatGPT, right? And some people will talk about some of the other tools that they use. But if Grok is coming in and it's as accessible and as easy to use it, then I think that's good, right? It's going to bring real healthy competition to that space. So for us as consumers.
Well, he's talking about there's going to be some like really advanced applications for healthcare, finance, education, and things when Grok 3 comes out. Like, really going to start pushing the boundaries to really making differences in like healthcare and things like that. Like, that's limited right now, but like as soon as like you can get an AI, and we'll cover another story later in the short clips. But if singularity in AGI is near, then if these AIs can go off and formulate their own research and work out better research methods, better diagnosis methods, who knows where like healthcare and stuff's going to go. But I mean, even Grok 2, I've got an interesting story here that Elon mentioned. So, this is his first message. So this was back in January 4th. Grok 3 is coming soon. Pre-training is now complete with 10x more compute than Grok 2, which is what I just mentioned. Yep. But really interesting story. Oh, I'm trying to press on the wrong place here. So Elon's message here on Twitter, or X, should I say, Grok can diagnose medical injuries. And the story is there was a woman, a young girl, that was involved in a bad car accident. She had like pins and needles in her like hand and her wrist, and after a while they're like, we should go to the doctors and get it like looked at. So they went to the hospital. The doctors did an X-ray. There's the full story here in more detail, but I'm not going to open all up to show you. But the long and short of it was that the doctors said, no, there's no issue. Go home. Like, gave her some like ibuprofen. Said, just go home and rest. It's fine. Mm-hmm. But when she was at home, she's still getting like these. My hand was going cold. She was getting these pins and needles in. So before she left, she asked for a copy of the X-rays. So they sent her a copy of the X-rays, and she looked and she put them into Grok and asked them to diagnose it. And they said, this clearly, this particular kind of fracture was called a distal radius fracture, right? Mm-hmm. surprised that they kind of missed it. That's all I'm saying. And it, like particular kind of pressure. So after a while, she went back and she didn't say that, oh, use Grok to like look at my X-rays. She just said, like, can you look at it again? Because it's still like I'm still having these issues.
Yeah.
And they took some different X-rays from different angles, like maybe I can't remember if it was a different machine or something, and basically that then diagnosed the fracture that Grok had diagnosed, literally the correct kind of fracture, and then they put her in a cast and said, yeah, you got a fracture, and sent her home, and like, but that's just, I mean, that's a small example. I mean, that's small fry to what's going to be possible in coming years, right?
Wow. I mean, it's just insane. It's just a ridiculous story, isn't it? In terms of that as a concept, as a, you know, oh yeah, like this computer thing diagnosed my issue from an X-ray, like this really, really specialist stuff. And like, there's no way, like if you showed me an X-ray, I mean, apart from if the bone was literally snapped in half, would I be able to say, oh yeah, there's something wrong there? So it's not a trivial thing. And this is Grok 2, right? Like you just announced that there's real advancements coming from Grok 3, 10 times more compute. I mean, how that translates into performance, or in this exact scenario, who knows? But surely more compute can only be a better thing. I would assume is a fair thing to say. Yes, it's, I mean, like you say, the use cases, it's just endless.
I mean, I think what's really interesting about this is that all these LLMs are trying to like be good at everything, right? They're trying to be real generalists. So like this LLM was not specifically trained on medical injuries and things like that, but it's seen enough of them through what it's scraped through the data it's been trained on, that it could like diagnose that. But I have a question for you then on that basis. Like, is there really a place in the market? Can ChatGPT, Anthropic, Grok, Gemini, is there a space like for them all to compete to be the best at everything? Because I'll tell you what my kind of gut is that at some point they're going to be generally good at everything, but they're gonna, what's that? There's a saying, isn't there? Like, be where you go deep basically in one area. So you be broad. I remember there's actually like a saying that, be like there's a generalist, there's a specialist, and then there's a hybrid, which is like you're generalist across most stuff, but then you're a specialist in one area. I just can't help but feel like eventually we're going to say, like, if you want to do deep research, then this is the tool you use. If you want to do coding and software development, like this is the one that you use. Because I'm just not sure, like how, and they're probably not going to be the last ones in the market, right? There's a whole bunch. Like, how is there really going to be space for every? I mean, I guess my question is, like, are we going to have like, is generalists the way to go, and they're just all going to be like competing to be the best generalist, or do you reckon eventually we're going to go?
That's not an easy question, Mark. I mean, I've got a ton of thoughts. I mean, one of them is that I think that we have opinions and thoughts in our heads based on everything that we've been taught and experienced throughout our lives so far, because of what we as humanity understand and know, our knowledge. Now, I think that there's going to be a number of things, and I know that's very broad, but I think a number of things that we genuinely redefine, and we redefine it because the technology that we have accessible to us is different. And one of those things could be, in this example, is this concept of generalists and experts, because there's kind of a limiting factor right now as a human for you to, your brain's only so capable. There's only so much you can truly know and truly be able to understand, because that's just the way that we work. That there's so many things that sort of, there's bottlenecks in that process. So maybe right now our view of the world is you can be either a generalist where you know a little about a lot, you can be an expert where you know a lot about a little, or you can be this kind of hybrid where you are pretty good generalist and you've got a couple of areas of deep expertise. Now, why is that the cut? Like, why is that the split of options to us? I think maybe that's just because of the limitations that we have as humans. But why can't you be an expert in everything? Why is that not feasible. And actually, we kind of already are seeing it. That the ChatGPT is generally going to be more knowledgeable, let's say, in inverted commas, than most people at everything. Like even some specialists will, would these current models would rival it in terms of how much they know and how they're correct on maybe more occasions. Like that's the kind of level of capability we're talking about. So that's my first thing. My second thing around, is there room in the market for all these players? Is I think I think maybe yes, maybe no. And the reason I say it is because there's knowledge and there's being able to understand things and explain things and all these concepts again is part of our the way humans function. But there's also ways of thinking, and like the most obvious example is like I think most people would accept that there's people that are super technical and there's people that are super creative, and maybe they're often quite separate. Maybe you've got some people that are both. I'm certainly quite a technical thinker or logical thinker, let's say. So I think things through in a certain way, and that's how I arrive at my thoughts and how I express my opinions. And it might be also someone really creative or someone really philosophical that looks at things in a completely different way. I look at it, it's black or white, whatever it is, and someone else is just seeing it in a completely different way. Now that for me isn't a reflection of knowledge or capability. That's just something about the way you think. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know whether that's like how you're born, whether that's your upbringing, whether it's how you educate. Like I don't know why people are the way they are. But what's also true is this kind of concept of cognitive diversity has huge value. And I'm sure you've had your own experiences, Mark, where having someone who's super logical in the way they think and someone who's really creative in the way they think, trying to tackle a problem together, and actually all of the other sort of people on the spectrum and where they sit in that cognitive spectrum, having a blend is how you get to the best outputs. That's how you get to the really cool stuff versus like a team of purely technical people or purely creative people. It's the blends that cause the best thing in the way that humans operate. So why is that not like, is that not true for these LLM tools? And I don't know, like I certainly see it in like the coding tools you use. Like you give a very specific structure, think this through step by step. That's how we want it to approach coding problems, because it is a technical thing. And if you ask it to write a book or a story or paint a picture, like maybe it thinks in a different way. And I don't know whether you can train one model to do all of those things, or whether there is a world where this model is a technical expert. It thinks things through in this way. That's how it solves problems. And over here, you've got this other tool which thinks things through creatively, and it tries to draw parallels or look at it through a different angle, or whatever it is. Like I don't know, but yeah, I guess that's where my two off the cuff thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you're both saying there, you maybe they're 10 out of 10 in everything, a 10 out of 10 creative, 10 out of 10 in logic, or do we have some that are different? I think maybe it does go down the road where they're good at everything, because why not? If you're an AI, be good at everything. But I think there's still we're at the start of a journey here. Like, okay, we might be maxing out like not the amount of data that we can consume, but then we're talking about synthetic data. But there's going to be further advancements. We got the reasoning thing now. There's going to be more like over time. Some of it's going to be down to branding probably, but also someone like you look at any industry that's established, like they're vying for top spot at the moment. Like any industry that's established, generally you can look at it and go, there's one winner, there's a clear second place, who's not got a much smaller share of the market, and then there's the rest. Forget about, like they're all the small fry. That's generally what happens. So I suspect someone, and that's what they're vying for, someone's going to be the winner, someone's going to be the second place. Think about like Windows and Apple, right? Sorry, Linux people, but like they're the top two. There is two. What's the other example I just thought of? Generally there's like one. Generally, most industries there's like a top dog, there's a second place. But mostly it's an also ran. Oh yeah, and then.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's again, there's kind of like physical, like almost prerequisites that have to be true for these companies to be successful. One of them is like we talked about, compute and architecture and the ability to actually run these models. Then there's the models themselves. Then there's the talent that's actually building them, and all these other things that you have to think about. But it's, even in the examples you gave about, traditionally this is how it's always been, like, yeah, like, Apple, Microsoft, all these players in that space, like, it's very, very difficult to conceive that another tech company could come out of the blue and suddenly take top spot. But I think, again, it's just because in, normal, in how we've understood everything up till now, these things take time. Like, this world of AI, like having an AI model or whatever, these things can be, they can be developed really, really quickly, like really, really quickly. So it's not inconceivable in your mind to imagine that there's a company somewhere that none of us currently know of that are doing something. They're trying to build their own competitor to these models, and for whatever reason, maybe they've got, like, for whatever reason, they've just got this mental access to compute, and they're able to produce a model which is more capable or better at certain things than what currently exists on the market. Like, that's what all these big tech companies are trying to compete for, is the next step, towards agentic AI or AGI or singularity, whatever it is. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility that there could be another player that just comes to market.
Sure. But we're in the bottom of the S curve, aren't we? So still, so we're not established at all. Like, it's still an open fight for anyone. But yeah, we'll get to moving on to the next story. But I mean, just like, other examples are like Google, the search engine, and Bing. Like, Google's massively dominant. Bing is clearly the second place, and then there's iPhone and Android, and then the others. Like, there's generally a winner, and also around, and then the rest. It will happen eventually, but that still could be 5-10 years away before someone as clearly establishes that lead. And yeah, it could be someone completely new. Who knows?
I mean, like I said, I don't want to derail the rest of the session because I could go on for ages, but just the idea that these things are competing against each other is an interesting thing. I mean,
it's great for innovation, great for us.
It is. That's so true. Yeah.
The last thing on Grok. Grok is another bit of news. Grok is also coming to every Tesla, even though one's new ones soon. So that's really interesting. I mean, that's a topic almost in its own right, but you'll be able to query the LLM because you can already speak to the car, right? You can already ask it stuff. But now if you could just speak to it, imagine you're like, if it's location aware, oh, tell me what restaurants are here. Okay, great. Take me to Pizza Express or whatever, and then it changes the navigation to like take you to Pizza Express or whatever, something like that.
Wow.
Or you can talk. Yeah, you can ask it what you want. Where's your oyster?
Yeah, it can be your car companion. You just talk to it if you're lonely.
yeah, literally. Tell me about what you know about X or Y or.
Wow. Okay, right. Grok. Let's pause it there and move on to the next thing. So the next thing we want to talk about was something called Minimax. So I'd never heard of Minimax before. So I'll give a bit of a brief introduction of who they are. But what I have seen, and the reason we want to talk about it, is they've released a new synthetic voice technology AI model. So that's currently come to market. There's some really, really cool stuff pinging around. And again, we'll watch a little demo of its capability in a second. But Minimax itself, so it's a Shanghai-based AI company. Again, like maybe that's why we haven't heard of it. It's sort of over in Shanghai. And they've only been around for about 3 years. So kind of to the point that we were just making, kind of come out of nowhere. You've never really heard of them. Like Google and Microsoft and all these other companies, you've sort of household names almost, but Minimax, kind of never heard of them. And what they do is, again, to the point you're making before, Marcus, they focus on a bit of a niche, I suppose. They've done some stuff around text to video capabilities, virtual reality and animated capabilities, and more recently text to voice. And it's the text to voice that we want to talk about. Last March, the company was valued at over $2.5 billion. So in 3 years, that's a mental valuation to have talked about. I'd love to sort of see the analysis of companies that have, how long it's taken to get to $2.5 billion valuations, but 3 years is probably a pretty impressive stat. And therefore, again, not a small player. Like, the amount of investment that's just piled into them because so quickly they've been able to show capability in this space is just insane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly flash up a video that you'll see, and it's not a the visual isn't as important as the sound, so hopefully it won't require me to dictate. I'll sort of explain what's going on. You'll just be able to hear. So all of this is like generated by this model. So we'll give it a listen.
Are you new to this world? Welcome to the Hailuo voice world. Let's explore the magic of voice together. Voice is the rhythm of time unfolding.
It carries innocence,
echoes in the strength of youth, resonates with resilience,
and becomes the song of wisdom.
It bridges the past,
the present,
and the dreams yet to come.
Voice bears the weight of our emotions.
Everything feels so heavy.
This is the best day of my life.
I'm done putting up with this.
What if it all goes wrong?
And a voice has the power to connect us all.
なんだか全部が重く感じる。
你有咩咁唔開心啊？
Je me sens complètement paumée et submergée.
有这样的感觉很正常，你并不孤单。
Gracias. Solo necesito un poco de orientación.
Just take one step at a time. You'll be fine.
With a single step, and the power of voice will be yours to command.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hailuo Audio HD model is now live.
Minimax.
Okay, there we go. That was quite cinematic, wasn't it?
It is. Yeah, describe for everybody like what it is that we were looking at, and like what it was. Why it was important.
Yeah. So what we were looking at there is there was, I think, it was mostly animated visuals, wasn't it? And effectively different people talking. So you will have heard almost a wide variety of different voices there. Voices of like an older gentleman, a younger child, a lady. You've got different nationalities coming through there, different emotions, and all we were seeing on the screen is kind of depictions of people that might have those voices. Worth saying that actually the AI it was all AI generated. So the actual visuals that we were seeing, the lip syncing, so to speak, was a bit off, and that has been one of the things that people have talked about as like one of the flaws right now is the ability to generate voice and then also to AI generate the visuals that match up the two and so that they're smoothly linked together. But the capability that we're really honing in on there is the ability to generate all those different voices.
Wait a minute. Were those visuals AI generated?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I've watched that video before when you sent it to me, and I just watched it again. I didn't realize. I didn't know they were AI people. I thought they were AI voice over the top. I didn't realize that AI people.
Oh, now you've got me thinking. I'm pretty sure I've read about this, and it's all AI generated visuals as well, and that's why some of the that's why they struggled to get the text to match.
Well, it makes sense.
But now you've got me thinking. I'm going to rewatch. We're gonna have to look into that after the clip. Make sure and we'll verify.
It was just so good, but yeah.
First,
so what do they do? This Minimax. What do they do? The Minimax company.
So Minimax. So it's the model itself. So this text to voice model. In fact, what I wanted to do was show you a quick play on the screen of the actual tool itself, because I've managed to find it. So what we're looking at here is a user interface where you can type in some speech, so text, whatever you want, and you've got various settings that you can toggle with. So you've got the voice itself, and there are literally tons in here, literally tons. And just to give you an example of a few: decent young man, sentimental lady, gentle teacher, imposing queen, teen boy, passionate warrior. And you've got all these filters. You've got the different languages: English, Arabic, Chinese, Dutch, French, German. Accent, so you can have accents as well as language. Gender, male, female. Age, young adult, middle-aged, senior. That's just one of the filters. You've then got emotions. You can select happy, sad, angry, fearful, disgusted, speed, pitch, and these are just the built-in like functionalities. You can also create your own voice clone. So you can speak in, give it loads and loads of clips of you speaking, and it will then mimic your voice. So the kind of, and I've kind of got a list of all the different things. So 17 different accents. I've actually got a list of how many languages are available, but there was a long list there. Incorporated emotions, different it's got different sound effects. This is really cool. So you can make it sound like the person's talking like on an old radio, or they're talking over the telephone, or they're talking walkie-talkie. You've got over 300 built-in voices, so all of those ones that we talked about, like gentle teacher, trusted gentleman, and then the fine-grained control around pitch, speed, and emotional control. So this is like the most advanced version of text to speech model that you've got in terms of what you can, like how you can tweak the output, the settings that you're able to apply. And this, as I said, is what's accessible to me as a user. There's a lot more of like customization, and as I say, you can train it on your own voice and generate anything from speech, from text to this speech.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I'd like to see, because I haven't looked at 11 Labs for a while, but 11 Labs has been able to do that for a while, like train on your own voice, and has loads of different voices and stuff to choose from. I think I did try and train it on my own voice, and it wasn't great. Like it was just better using one of the out of the boxes, but that was 6 months ago. And I know there've been obviously a lot has changed in 6 months. So 11 Labs kind of have that kind of stuff. I don't know if they now have like all right the background noise and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. Like if you want to say you're at the beach or on the railway train station. But what I'm interested in is like the video part of that thing, because I had a video tab on that tool that you just showed.
Yes.
Like, am I be able to pair? Do I upload a video of a person or a picture of a person, and then it puts the voice on them, or is it like, or does it just generate a video from the voice? Like that was the bit that was like kind of interesting to me. Like if the video kind of bit works.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know how the two pair up. I mean, for me, I was just absolutely blown away by the speech functionality. I mean, I totally even now you've just again set me off thinking about, oh my gosh, yeah, of course, if you could pair this with video content as well, and the two align, you know, the visuals is one thing, but for me, it's really interesting. I remember having discussions about the most important things. I think I've had training on this or something around how you use your voice to communicate, and how important it is that the things like your pitch, your intonation, your emotion, the speed that you're talking at, all of those things have way more. There's way more nuance and like flexibility to communicate in to control how you're communicating or what you're communicating to someone than some visual things, or in fact actually what you're saying at all. So like, you know, I could say, you know, I really like you, Mark, but I could, you know, the fact I'm saying I really like you, Mark, isn't as important as the fact that I'm saying it like really angrily or really like sad. You know, for you to actually, you know, what you take away from that as a piece of communication is more about those bits around my voice than what I'm actually saying or you know, my gestures.
That's part of the problem, isn't it? Like with you want to be able to build that up. So if someone's telling a story that you know, when you had that selector, it's almost like, oh, I've got to be sad for the whole of this clip. But actually it'd be good if like you're telling a story and it goes up and down. And I mean, that is definitely the best voice I've heard. Like, I mean, I've not tried 11 Labs for a while, but that like, I think the problem, you know, historically, they would say like the voice stuff always, you can still tell it's AI, right? And like, you know, like Notepad LM, that was kind of really good.
Yeah.
I say when it came out like 2 months ago.
And
that sounded pretty good, but you could still tell it was an AI, right?
Yes.
And that stuff that you just showed, like you couldn't. And literally, but then the other problem is, okay, well, I've got decent voice, but what about the video? Like I can still tell that's an AI person. That's not a real person. But we have to look into that, whether that's because if they've cracked that with that video, that's like for me, that was like a real person with real voice and like both paired together. And then you can genuinely have a AI person delivering your marketing speech or you're on your YouTube channel or whatever, and you almost don't, you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the litmus test, isn't it? Once somebody can't tell if it's an AI or not, then
yeah, so true. I mean, it's definitely worth stressing that right now that's not what they've cracked. The speech to the like visual, voice moving, mouth moving stuff, like that is still like that. It's like an unsolved problem, I guess. I mean, it's not bad, as you say. Like there's some stuff, some of the clips on there were really quite impressive, but I think it is like the most obvious bit of like, okay, that's clearly not human. But the voice alone, like if you were to shut your eyes and just listen, and it'd be interesting for those that are only listening to this, how they responded to it. But the actual the voice alone, as you say, I think that was actually more tricky to distinguish that as a human or not. And what I want to talk about, so like obviously that's just so impressive, right? Like it's just so impressive. And as you say, you know, compared to things that even a few months ago we were getting gassed about, it's just so much further along. It's just so much better again. But I want to talk about the use cases very, very quickly. And you know, obviously, you know, you've reeled off a few there, Mark. The content generation is an obvious one, right? And there's various entertainment style things that can be built off of this, game development and movies and cartoons and all kinds of things. Like you no longer need like a person to do voiceovers because there's this tool, and some really cool examples. So obviously e-learning and languages. You know, I don't know if you've ever used Duolingo, but it's a little bit robotic. It's a little bit like, you know, that's obviously a market leader in terms of educating for languages. But you can see there it can switch between languages, no worries. And it, you know, that's really, really impressive. It sounds like a human, and the intonation and the pronunciation and all of that stuff, like you can toggle. So that's really, really cool example. And language is just one example in the learning space, right? Like you can have, you know, teaching just generally using this stuff is all certainly now within its gift, rather than it sounding quite robotic. Accessibility enhancements, being able to actually describe things properly and use emotion as part of that, instead of again it being like robotic. If you've ever used a screen reader, but it is really quite like, I don't know, like it's just a bit grating. Voice restoration is an interesting one as well. I mean, we talked about being able to train on your own voice, but you can also historical figures, you know, from history. I think I've certainly seen some examples of that come through already, and how you're able to mimic people. But some really, really interesting stuff, and you can do that again for personal, close family members, friends. All of that's now within your gift, within our gift. Now, I want to talk about two big impacts, though, right? So, one really, really nice one that I thought came out of this technology is just like this kind of technology right now, to be able to like create voiceovers, or, you know, use speech as part of creation of anything. You know, it's quite difficult to do, because you have to either hire humans, or the technology is really expensive. But this is now, it's widely accessible, and it's cheap. Like I don't know how expensive it is, but it is cheap. It's affordable for people. And so, you know, if you're an indie content maker or an indie game maker, or, you know, you just don't have access to the same kind of tech as other people, small businesses, that kind of thing, like this is going to bring almost parity in terms of what people have at their fingertips for creating that kind of stuff. So that's a nice one. But the one that's a lot more concerning, and I think one that definitely rings alarm bells for everyone, is the potential for this technology to be misused, and all of the kind of scary you know, things that people can use to exploit this to exploit. So yeah, I know rattling through the time here, Mark, but what are your quick reactions on that sort of more scary angle?
Yeah, I mean, it's like deep fake to another level, isn't it? Like we're literally going to be able to distinguish the difference, and then like what's real at that point? Like how do you? It is scary, because like if you get a picture or like if you get a video of Elon Musk saying or doing something, half the people will believe it anyway, even if he denies it. Like, but if you literally can't tell the difference, like what are you to do? I mean, I guess no, you can't even do that. I don't know. What can you do?
It's terrifying.
It's
I mean, the one thing that scares me the most is you know, it's maybe I don't know if it's a smaller impact or a bigger impact, but you know, if you're able to impersonate anyone, and if I'm able to impersonate you, what's stopping me calling up, your friends, your family, and like effectively scamming them because I write up some stupid story. I've got your voice. Maybe I've used all the content that exists on the internet using your voice to train this thing, and I can call your partner and say, oh, I'm in trouble. Can you send me some money, or can you do this thing? Can you send that's just like really, really scraping the surface of what's going to be possible. But even now, today, with the technology that's accessible, people are able to scam left, right, and center vulnerable people, and this like leap forward to be able to impersonate anybody you like is just I dread to think for people that have malicious intentions what damage they can do with this technology, and that's something which would definitely I think definitely worth talking about is in a separate video. But what are the measures that are being put in place to protect against that? Because right now it's like it really is. It's almost like putting a gun in the hands of a monkey, kind of scary. Like,
I wonder if there's a space for like some kind of innovation for proving authenticity of a video. So I'm just thinking about something I say stupid. Something here where like maybe it's like if I'm Elon Musk, I publish every video on Twitter or whatever like this, unless I've put it out into the world on my own personal channels. It might not be Twitter, it might be some other platform or social. Unless I put it out in the world, it's not me. I was thinking to start with, it could almost say that video of me holding up a monkey thing is me. But then someone could impersonate the monkey thing, I guess, if they wanted to. But like, it's almost got to be like, unless I published it, unless I delivered it, then it's just not. Like,
it is just scary, isn't it? Because and that's like maybe there's a world where for public figures there's something that can be done. There's kind of this concept of this is my official social media channel or whatever, it's verified, and therefore anything that gets posted on there is legit. Maybe there's a way to sort of secure that down, but phone calls to loved ones, like there's no way you can verify that kind of thing. That doesn't seem like it's going to come around anytime soon. And if this technology exists now, like right now, we could go away, right? We could go away, train up your voice and ring up your friends and play these text snippets. There's no reason why we can't do that. And there's nothing, it seems, on the horizon which is going to provide any kind of protection in that space. So
possibly, yeah. I mean, I guess it's the authenticity thing again, right? So it's like it's as secure as any password is, but you would potentially say a password at the start of the call, or if it's a video, you hold up something that you and your family know, like is you. But if that gets out, and then they can use it, it's even worse. But
it's very behavioral change, isn't it? I mean, you who are, if anyone watching as well, right? You're clearly, ahead of the majority in terms of understanding this stuff. So if you are watching this, or even for us thinking this, oh, do you know what? Actually, that's really scary. I'm gonna implement this. I'm gonna implement my own little security measure where I always say a key word or phrase every time I speak to a family member and they can't see me or it's not in person. Cool. Like that's a great protective measure to put in place for you. But for the vast majority of people, they are not going to be aware of the sophistication here, and they're certainly not going to have an inkling to put in place their own kind of protection. And even if they are aware of that as a thing, I think a lot of people just wouldn't bother. Like they just wouldn't bother. Why would you? It's just like, oh, come on, like get a grip. I'm not saying this stupid phrase every time I talk to mate or mum. Like no way. Like I do like to think that there'll be something. Do you know what I mean? There's a responsibility for these companies particularly to protect people, and governments and authorities to do that. But it just feels like we're so behind, just generally in terms of like what is within our gift now, that there's going to be a period of exploitation, and that's like that for me. It's very scary.
Will be. Just think about the authentication apps as well. Like if you want to connect to somebody, you have to use the authentication app to like you can make that connection through. I'll tell you what, there's a story that maybe we'll do it at the end, but I'll say what I think about it. There's a story that we haven't included on our list, but again, it's Elon involved. like
Sure.
disruption. maybe we'll do it next time, but it's disruption in the cell phone market, right? Mobile phone market. He basically says now that he could you get mobile phone coverage with Starlink anywhere on the planet, basically. Like, and his plan is to implement that. So that just gets rid of like all mobile phone companies, any need for mobile masts, and like that. So suddenly every telecom company, and because the infrastructure is huge for that, but he's already got the satellites in the air. I mean, my worry is that is like if we switch over to that and they have no mobile phone masts anymore, and then like there's that event where satellites start taking there's a collision, and then all the satellites start taking each other. There's no phones at that point, is there?
Oh my God. Oh gosh. Oh gosh, Mark.
But anyway,
stop.
That was a quick story that I remembered. That it involves more thought. But let's jump on to our last main story. I'll try and keep it reasonably short, and then we'll have a quick fire stories at the end, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay.
Sounds great. Let's go.
So, Mark Zuckerberg was on the Joe Rogan podcast this week. He was on there for as all the podcast. Joe Rogan's podcasts are generally pretty long, going through loads of stuff. But he was clearly there on a mission to promote himself and the business, of course. But he kind of wanted. He had a message that he wanted to deliver, which is we're promoting freedom of speech on our platforms, which is clearly in response to Musk and X and what he's done. X has grown hugely since Musk took over, mainly because of it opening up freedom of speech and not being influenced by government, and it's come to light that Mark, the Facebook have done things that have to appease the government, and the government allowed the government to go and basically delete accounts within X and things like that, and actually have heavy influence and not allow freedom of speech. So Mark, he's saying, we're going to do this. It's clearly in response to Elon, but I think it's only good for everybody. Freedom of speech is good. Freedom of speech is scary, but at the same time, it's real. I think locking freedom of speech down is a more dangerous thing than allowing people to speak their mind, even if you don't like it. But I didn't really want to speak about that, because that was the main message he was clearly on there for. But no, he did speak about the death of coding, the death of developers. We've talked about it a few times already on this channel, because it's genuinely real. And the death of SaaS we spoke about, right? But he said, in 2025, they expect to have an AI tool acting as a mid-level engineer within their business, capable of writing code. We already spoke as well. He mentioned about AI agents, how that's profoundly going to change how software is developed, or the kind of software that you develop. It's going to be more that these tasks are what he spoke about as well. Is coding may eventually just be done in real time for specific tasks, and not using traditional programming languages. Programming languages now are for humans, or AI doesn't need that. It's not necessarily the best or the most efficient way. So maybe they'll develop an AI, or develop their own programming language, which is more efficient, and develop stuff in real time. And there's already huge companies that have Salesforce has said they've had a 30% productivity boost in development with AI. So they're not hiring as many engineers now.
Yep.
So yeah, it's real. It's coming. I think there's not long left really before coding. We've already experienced with things like Lovable just how now he's moving from I can design the front end easily with some of the tools that we've been using, like with Claude or with ChatGPT, to things like Lovable or Bolt, where now actually Lovable integrates with the back end. So now you've got a full stack application that can be created with using natural language and prompts. You can see how how quickly that's just going to become, I'm just going to ask an agent to create me something, and they're going to go away. We spoke about previously about having a hive. I think it's called a hive of agents as well. So you'll have ones that are specialists in. This goes back to our question about the LLMs as well earlier. But at the moment, it's the case that LLMs work better, especially like in coding environments or other environments, that they become specialists in an area. So you might have a back-end developer, a designer, a front-end developer, but they all work together to get the end result. Now, I think over time they all become one agent, but at the moment it works better if you have like a group of agents all working together. So yeah, I guess your first reaction and thoughts of where coding's going and that kind of stuff, Jack.
Yeah, it's so I think that this someone like Mark Zuckerberg, a real sort of figurehead in tech, and the sitting at the top of one of the largest tech companies. There's this concept of FANG in software engineering. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, I think is the ones, and they're like the real sort of creme de la creme of tech companies. If you're a software engineer at one of these FANG companies, you really are at the top of your game. And for one of the leaders in that space to come forward and say, to be honest, this year, we're going to have an automated mid-level engineer capability is like, talk about disruptive. That's massive. It's huge. If the talent of a mid-level engineer at a FANG company is one of the best in the world at that profession, the top 1%, and if he's saying, yeah, do you know what, we don't actually need those anymore, then that's like, what does that mean for that entire industry? How many software engineers are there in the world? How many software adjacent roles are there? 2025, we're in 2025. You know what I mean? It's not like it's time to prepare, and it takes years. It takes years to become that capable in that profession, traditionally. And what's he saying? It's no longer valuable. Like that is, and I think it's, it's one of the things that we've foreseen. It's one of the things we continue to foresee across all industries. It's just that for someone to come out and say it publicly on a in a medium like the Joe Rogan podcast, which is watched by millions of people, that has weight. That's a real statement to the world that AI is, it's not a joke, but it's happening, as you say. This is it. It's real. The one thing I would say, and it does prompt an interesting discussion point, I think, just generally, is that I think a lot of people still don't like, haven't subscribed to the idea that experts in fields will not still be valuable. Even as part of that statement, he said it's mid-level engineers that are going to be replaceable or no longer valuable. And yeah, this year. Yeah. So that has some weight in that, for those not familiar with the sort of hierarchy of engineers, mid-level is, as you'd assume, sort of someone in the middle. You've got kind of quite a few tiers above that in terms of expertise and specialisms that exist in the software engineering hierarchy. So, okay, let's say what's weird is that even though it's mid-level, it's kind of like a pyramid. So the sort of the volume of engineers who are above mid is maybe, let's say, 10% of all engineers, and mid-level and below is, let's say, 90%. I don't think that those numbers are correct, but hopefully it illustrates my point. But the thing is that, again, traditionally, to become one of those top 10%, you naturally have to progress through the bottom tiers of that hierarchy. You can't become a top level engineer without having first been a junior engineer and just going through all of those years of experience and all that learning to become an expert in your field. So I think the question becomes, well, I suppose, if you firstly assume that those top level engineers are valuable, then, well, you still need to put people through those lower tiers for them to learn how to become a top tier engineer. So mid-level engineers still have value. Maybe they're just not actually developing on the actual products, but they're still there doing stuff, learning. But then the second exam question is, well, is it just a matter of time until those top level engineers also are replaced and no longer have value? And if the answer to that is yes, then suddenly the hopeful, more optimistic view of no, it's fine, like you can still progress and become an expert is, that's no longer
It's definitely yes. There might be niche like languages or niche products. It's definitely yes. It's definitely yes. Like we're talking like no time at all. Like it's definitely yes. Like it's gone. Like the whole thing's like Yeah, but it's like you're saying, like this is a disruption across all industries, and across the board, it is going to free people up to being more, pursue more creative roles within business to start with. Because if you can think it and prompt an AI to do it, then there's going to be that value in that. But eventually. But there's going to be disruption in the meantime. We know this. Like, there's just going to be job losses. We've talked about this already. In the short term, it's going to be horrific. But in the longer term, I think it does free people up to not only do more creative work and activities within their role, but actually just in life. And actually, maybe we don't need to work so much. But this is down the road for some time. But yeah, I'll wrap it up with one last comment, which has kind of been rolled out before, but it was mentioned again in podcast. Is that this new technology offers the chance for a one-person startup to reach $1 billion valuation for the first time, like ever. A one-person company reaching $1 billion valuation. So that is just staggering in its own right. Like, you're literally doing the work of 100 men or 100 people, hundreds of people potentially, but it would normally take to get $1 billion valuation. Maybe one person could do it with the help of AI. Tech companies can grow fast anyway, right? If you can do tech with AI, it could happen. So could it happen in 25? Maybe not. Maybe it's too soon. But 26, I think, viable. And 26 is when all the senior and principal engineers are replaced as well.
Right. Should we whiz through last few updates? So we won't go into these, just headlines, I guess, that if you're interested, go and explore. So firstly, ChatGPT tasks. So OpenAI released a new feature for ChatGPT this week. We did do a separate unboxing React video if you want to go and have a look at that. But it's interesting, has great potential, but not groundbreaking is probably the summary. Got some interesting news from the UK government. Keir Starmer and some of his cabinet have come forward this week and unveiled the AI action plan in the UK. It's kind of the first real acknowledgement that AI is going to be as disruptive as we think it will be, and the UK is starting to put some action around it. Again, maybe too little too late, but at least it's finally come out. Again, done a little video on that one, so if you want to go and check that out, have a look. Few other things. So Apple this week had to suspend its AI-driven news feature after it reported incorrect news. So mental that a corporation as big and as have as much capability as Apple still getting AI wrong. So they had to roll that one back, which is interesting. TfL, so Transport for London, are looking to incorporate AI to improve safety on their platforms. That's a real nice use case to hear that's coming through. Slightly adjacent, but Taiwanese semiconductor firm have announced a 57% increase in profit over the last quarter, thanks to what they're describing as the AI boom. So yeah, lots of parallel industries that are actually doing very well out of this AI revolution. And some interesting news from Microsoft this week. So their CEO came forward and announced a couple of changes to their big sort of consumer AI product called Copilot. First thing is that they're making it available through their personal Microsoft 365 subscription, so you can get it on your personal device. And then secondly, they're also making Copilot Chat available to all business accounts, and that also includes some capability for users to make their own AI agents, or at least that's how it's branded in the product. Advanced functionality within the Copilot ecosystem is still sort of an additional cost, but this move is kind of an attempt to increase the speed of AI adoption within businesses. So quite an interesting play from Microsoft there.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think that's a wrap on the news for the week, Jack.
It's a big week. It's only what, week 2 of 2025.
It's always a big week. Every week's a big week in AI.
But really exciting, and I really enjoyed that, Mark. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Cheers, guys. Bye.